back for another episode of At the Catch. It's been 2 weeks since the first episode, and in that time, I'm delighted to have received so many positive comments and words of encouragement. I like to set the bar high, and will do what I can to keep each and every episode as interesting, engaging, and instructive as the last. The episode you're about to hear will not disappoint, as it's packed with a boatload of information, pun intended. So much so that I've even included a number of links in the episode details below so you can relax and listen and not worry about taking notes. This week's guest is Michael Trabue, and he is a self-professed data nerd when it comes to his rowing data. He has produced some wonderful posts on the Ergatta Facebook group, sharing many interesting things he's learned along the way. In the following conversation, we do our best to stay out of the weeds, but trust me, there's a lot of great insight and knowledge that will benefit everyone, whether you're new to rowing or already have millions of meters behind you. I hope you enjoy, and please subscribe below so you never miss an episode. And of course, I look forward to hearing all of your comments and suggestions. I already have a handful of guests lined up for the near future, but we'll continue to seek out interesting folks with great stories to tell. Let's shove off and get started with another episode of At the Catch. Hi there, welcome to the next episode of At the Catch. This week I have Michael Trabue as our guest. I say it right, Michael?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Who also goes by Firestop as his rival name on Ergatta. And Michael is known as our data guy on the Facebook group. Is that accurate, Michael? Will you accept that moniker?
I will accept. Probably boring, but that's all.
Well, it's anything but boring. We'll get to that a little bit later. Before we get started, if you would just kind of give us a 30-second commercial, tell us about yourself.
I'm an Army brat, born in Georgia, traveled around the country. And I think my daughter asked me the other day how many schools I had been in. I can't remember how many schools, but I think I moved 13, 14 times growing up. Traveled around the country, down in Panama. Yeah, I went to college, went into the fire service, was in the fire service for about 35 years, firefighter, fire inspector, fire marshal. I retired here right before the pandemic. And that ironically led to me overexerting, doing some workouts and a knee injury and Ergatta. Very circuitously, but yes.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so unlike most people on this platform, you actually have a rowing background. Tell us about that.
Tiny.
But it's something. It's more than most.
It was something. When I was in college, I saw some posters our freshman year. Hey, rowing. So what the heck is that? So I went down to the boathouse, tried out in the freshman group, and just rode lightweight for a year. We were getting ready to start back in the next, my sophomore year. We were playing some flag football, broke my ankle, and that ended my rowing career. But it was a fun year, great people, loved the sport. It was hard as all get out, but had a lot of fun with it. And I really just put it away for the longest time. During my time in the fire service, needing time to work out, different tools they would bring in that we could work out in the stations. And they brought a C2 rower in one day, years back, and I would use it off and on as a way to keep up some aerobic. Didn't really put a lot to it. Then ended up with a shoulder injury, and I had to go through some rehab and needed something that was partially upper body that wasn't too strenuous. Got back on the rower, loved it, did it for a couple years, and then sort of walked away from it. But found it again when I was doing my last rehab, and now I've stuck with it. The Ergatta platform is addictive, and it's sort of hung on to me, or I've hung on to it. But yeah, so now I've gotten into it, and I've stayed with it, and now I've gone data nerd on it. So it feeds a lot of my needs.
Indeed. I think that's true for a lot of us. So you're about your 2-year anniversary.
Coming up in 15 days.
Yeah.
Days.
So it's funny. I feel like I did homework in preparing to talk to you today, not only on the data
I,
side,
I've
my
posted,
terminology out there.
I've posted too much.
Well, the funny thing is, do you remember I guess it was probably your first post, and you came in with the Ben-Hur quote.
Oh, yes. Yes. One of my favorite movies.
So it's Charleston Heston. He was rower 41,
Yes. For 41.
and the famous quote from whoever the general or whoever was commanding the boat.
Yeah. You row to serve this ship.
Yeah. Row,
Paraphrasing.
or he says, yes, so row well
Row well. Then
and live. So after 2 years, you've rowed well and you've lived. So these are all good things.
survive.
Uh, so your first year, you rowed 5 million meters.
Yes. I hit it almost right on my anniversary. Yeah.
That's jumping in with both feet.
Yeah. And I think that the first year they did that 2 million meter challenge,
Mm-hmm.
I think I knocked that out first also. Kind of
Okay.
bang on the back. But I think I cranked that out oh gosh, I might have been March or whatever it was after they started it up, and I just sort of went nuts.
And so then you
When I
kind
was
of,
young,
when you were younger, yes, indeed. Um, you then kind of pivoted for your focus. So you went from meters to a new focus. Tell us about that.
well, when I originally got on, I mean, my original purpose for going with Ergatta was I was going through from a bad rehab or a bad knee injury and rehabbing. And I lost about probably 20% of the muscle mass out of my right leg due to a bolting disc created knee disc and some nerve issues. Long and short of it, in the pandemic, all that. But anyway, but I could not. Problem was that I was hitting the wall and trying to do exercises to build up my aerobic capacity because I was used to either running or on a treadmill or running outside or on a stairmaster or something along those lines. But the problem is I was having too much pain because of the stress I was putting on the knee.
Mhm.
So that first couple of months, I was just trying anything I could to build aerobic. So that's why I sort of went nuts with that. You know, my focus was just crank out as much as I can. You just crank out the meters. I mean, I was on there for hours just because I wanted to build my aerobic capacity. And then it was funny, I sort of had this epiphany then after that challenge was over. I thought, okay, what am I going to do? I could just keep on doing this. But if I'm going to try to get better at rowing, what can I do? And then I thought about it, and then the issue had to do with power. When I was rowing, was I rolling with power? Or was I just getting the time and speed by just cranking out a lot of SPM? And so I started looking at that, and I thought, well, I want to get stronger. So okay, I built up my aerobic capacity, but I want to build up the strength. And so I started looking at how much power I could exert during each stroke. Well, you get that on watts. You know, you see that up there on the screen. That's not the big focus. Ergatta's focus is typically pace. The pace where I got into this is and doing some reading is pace and watts are related. Ergatta splashes up on the screen and has most of their focus on pace, intervals, but you also see a little thing down there that says watts. Well, watts relates is power. And if you look at it, that power is generated based upon how strong or what your pull, I hate to say pull, what the push down the slide is, that part of the stroke, the active part of the stroke, and the number of times you do it during a period.
Mm.
That equates to power. Well, if you're running like a squirrel or running like a hamster on a wheel and you're running real fast, you could build up a lot and build power, but you're having to work really, really hard at it. But if you can slow that down and push with more force and get that balance. So I thought, okay, well, that's what I want to do. I want to build strength in my legs, not just endurance, but I want to build strength. So that's where I made that shift and goal. And I went to working on power, increasing power of my stroke, that effectiveness, that efficiency. We need
Efficiency
strength.
first. Mhm. Okay. And so is that when you went down the data hole?
Yeah. Well, I started going down the data hole as I was in the middle of my hours of rowing. You're seeing all these numbers, and I started thinking that was my first mistake. I started thinking about it, and well, okay. And then I thought to myself, well, I'm going to be, how am I going to know that I'm increasing my power if how do I measure that? Well, Ergatta doesn't really provide you that tool. But in reading some things there, I noticed that when I was looking at Strava, the data that was exported to Strava, came across a tool called Rosenal.com, which is a data tool used by rowers, both indoor and outdoor, but mostly I think it's geared towards or outdoor rowers, is that will manipulate or not, well, not manipulate, I say manipulate. It'll basically take a look at that, extract some of the data and analyze it. And so I had made my connection to Strava, but then I noticed needed to get into Rosenal. Rosenal connects with Strava, and there's a lot of platforms. So I
Mhm.
started transmitting the data from Ergatta to Strava and then in Rosenal. And then within Rosenal, I could see tools. I could see how much energy I was exerting per stroke. And I could start graphing it and start seeing it, how it related over time during the workout. And then I really just got into the weeds. That just sent me down a bad rabbit hole. And it just
Okay,
fed my inner sickness.
to pause here for the audience that their head is now spinning.
I,
I'll just say that I'm gonna put a lot of the stuff we talk about, I'm gonna put some in the notes just for reference so you can put away your pencil and paper and just listen. It is great that, your Ergatta system does capture basic data about your workouts, and it's a
yes,
great place to track distance, for instance. They also have the ability to upload to Strava, which is great. Everyone has to have a data receptacle. That's kind of what I call it. And like, for instance, I use Garmin. As a road cyclist, I've used Garmin for years. Everything goes to the Garmin universe. Of course, it's funny. Garmin also uploads to Strava. Ergatta uploads to Strava. So a lot of my Strava data is double counted. So people think, man, you're doing crazy stuff. I just I don't go into Strava very often to edit things out. So
right.
be it. If you add Smart Row, you'll triple the data. So just be 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 warned.
I do. Yes.
But there are so many great tools to do much more in-depth analysis. I mean, you talk about rows and all. I mean, I've experimented with that, and that truly is a hole you can go down and spend a lot of time. I'll say at this point, for the person that's new to rowing, or the person that is new to really wanting to get into the data and understand it, Strava is a good resource.
Mhm.
Rosenall is a good resource. Intervals.ICU is another one that you've used before. I don't want anyone to be intimidated by all the things you can do, but depends on how much time you have and how deep you want to dive. Go for it.
Well, yeah, and I would equate it to data data crunching for the sake of data crunching is not really where I and stick in his discussion with you said something that resonated with me is, he talked about goals. He was
Hmm.
talking his goals and setting goals and hitting those goals. Well, data crunching for the sake of data crunching to me is a waste of time because you have to have a goal. What are you trying to find out? So I never went in. I've never gone into the data with the idea that, oh, I'm just going to sit here and proliferate data and then analyze all this data and then just say, okay, well then I'll go have my lunch. And so there we go. No, I had a goal that I wanted. So at first, I really didn't look at it very much because I was cranking out meters. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to hit as many meters as I could in the shortest period of time. So, I think I almost did 1,000,000 in a month. There's some people right now that watching off.
Every month, it seems like, yeah.
Geez, I didn't got close in 1 month and I just about killed myself. But that was my goal. Well, then when I decided I want to start working at looking at increasing the power of how much strength exert during the row, still hold form, do it correctly. Well, how do you know? Unless you've got somebody telling you something, giving you immediate feedback, but they really can't do that. And it's not shining up in your face unless you have Smart Row or something like that that will give you that readout. You have to take a look at the data that you've created during your work after the workout is completed. That's when I started researching. I have this data in Strava. I saw it in Rosenthal, and I thought, my goal was power. So I focused just on that one part. You're right. It has a lot of tools. You could get lost. You will get lost in the weeds. But if you have a focus, whatever your focus is, mine happened to be power. It might be something else for someone else. Go in it with a purpose. And that way you won't get lost in that forest of data. You'll
Mhm,
focus down on just what data you need to look at to show you what you're looking for.
mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
And
uh,
that's been my approach, I guess.
yeah. You have some of your posts. I always love seeing them because I know I'd have to sit down, get my cup of coffee out, and digest it.
Pull over in your chair. Back.
Well, maybe even get a dictionary and have to do some Googling and trying to understand what a regression curve means. But you've done some great posts, and once again, I'm gonna take some of these posts, and I'm gonna put them together and put a link there so you can go see what we're talking about and get your cup of coffee ready. You have one of your posts was a plan, like a game plan for a race,
Mhm.
which is very wise. A 2K race is not just go as hard as you can for the distance, have a strategy, and you really lay that out as to where you don't blow it all at once, burn your matches, so to speak, and you leave something for the end. That was really great. I like how you take some of your races and you compare them 6 months to a year apart and see how your stroke has improved. See how you covered the same distance in it can be about the same time, but it was fewer strokes. You had more power per stroke. Some great stuff. Another one of my favorite ones is how you compare a pulse and a meteor workout,
Oh,
how
yeah.
very different those are. So you do it's the same workout, it's the same time, one's a pulse, one's a meteor. How how does your pace differ? How there are 2 different workouts. Also, I really appreciate some of your posts about recovery and taking a day off. You can't row and expect to just constantly move the bar up every single time. You're gonna have to let your body recover. Heart rate zones, you've covered that. Lately, you've talked about recovery after or getting back to rowing after a big layoff. Like Steve mentioned, Stick,
Mhm.
he rides in the summer. Once you get off one horse and get back on another, you have to ease back into it. You took
Right.
some time off, took some well-deserved vacation across the globe. You came back, and getting back in it was not, I don't wanna say wasn't easy. It took a little bit of time.
It wasn't as easy. It wasn't as easy. It's the worst I've ever felt. But then again, this is the oldest I've been where I've taken that much time away from any type of organized exercise.
Mhm.
Whoa. Yeah. Don't do it. Try to stay active. That's all I got to say. Even running around, we're walking 10 miles a day through Italy almost. But I, it wasn't aerobic.
Yeah.
Not aerobic at all. But yeah, and the things that you mentioned, what drove me, and this is why I bore people to death, is I felt it. Whatever it is, whether it's a goal, felt the thing. And then I thought to myself, well, why do I feel that way? And then I know there's these little tools out here. And I thought, well, I wonder if there's something that might be able to show me how I, felt it. Can I see it in the data? And it's not, I'm no expert. I am probably the dumbest rock on the earth when it comes to this stuff. But I try to read and try to educate myself enough so I'm a little smarter than I was. And there's a lot of resources out there. And, if you get into I'm not an exercise physiologist, and I can just say it's a controversial subject in camps. It seems like a lot of other things. There's ecosystems built around all of this. But again, to me, it was just trying to get an indicator like I felt this way. Well, can I see it in the data? Is what my body telling me? Is there something I can see? And maybe I can see it before I feel it. So in other words, as I'm rolling out and I'm looking at my workouts generally, if I come up with just some simple data to look at, can I see I'm starting to go downhill before I hit a bad spot? And
Mhm.
fight, and what really got me is you were talking about being a road cyclist. Road cyclists have been doing this kind of stuff. I mean, this isn't rockets. Well, I guess it is sort of rocket science, but it isn't new. It's been utilized by biking community. It make me look like a pauper when it comes to how much data cyclists punch. It amazes me what they
Mhm.
do. And I thought to myself, well, we don't do any of this for rowing. Not much. Maybe at the collegiate level or maybe at the Olympic level. But for recreational rowing, this type of stuff that we're doing with Ergatta, it's not done a lot. And most of the tools that are bike tools, Rosenall happens to be one that's dedicated towards rowers. Intervals, you mentioned intervals. Intervals.ICU has rowing profiles or you can set up for rowing. So you can use it for rowing. Some of the data readouts look bike-like,
Mhm.
like FTP there's a lot of bikeisms, I guess, in the readouts, but your profiles you can set up specifically for indoor and outdoor rowing if you have the ability to capture the power or heart rate. But yeah, these tools are there, and and there's not a lot out there written on how to use them. And so for me, again, I have a goal. One was heart rate threshold, all that other stuff, and building robot capacity. Okay, I satisfied that. Next was power. Well, I developed some stuff that I can check to look at power. I investigated on my own science experiment.
Mhm.
And so I found those tools. I did that. Then the issue of recovery, and you did some great workouts. You brought that issue up to the forefront with those workouts that you did, recovery workouts. And I thought to myself, well, there's a couple times I've hit the wall, where you've hit that point and you just after we did that competition during the summer.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm like everybody else. We're all competitive and we're all just trying to grind out workouts. And there were some people that just again blew my mind away with the amount of work they were doing. But I I hit a wall after that, and I noticed I haven't looked at Facebook much, but I noticed this morning I did a quick glance. There's a couple folks that are having motivational problems post Mordor.
Mm.
Well, yeah, and like getting back into it. Well, you're doing all that preparation, and then you get into it, and you do it, and then all of a sudden, your body tells you that sometimes you need to take a rest. Well, if you're grinding through this and you're training, you're not in a competition, but you're training. I was thinking to myself, well, how can I tell if I'm pushing too hard before I hit that wall physically? Are there indicators that might give me a clue? Hey, maybe you need to back off a little bit or maybe take a day of rest, even though my mind's telling me I'm going to get on that damn roll and I'm going to do it. So now that's my new thing that I'm looking at. It is recovery. I had been thinking about it, getting back on the roll and doing that first row after I came back from Italy. And I really felt it. I thought, okay, I want to really look at this. So now I'm crunching data and taking a look at my progress. I ended up taking a week over Thanksgiving off to go visit my daughter, grandson, his family. And now I'm folding that back in. I'm taking a look at how the impact of that time off was. That's what I call a long recovery.
Hmm.
And then now starting back into it. And then how do I get back into the groove? Do I just get back on the road and start cranking it out and then injure myself, try to get right back to where I was? Or how do I ease in? How do I work? So I'm just processing all this through. I'm looking at data. And at some point in time, when I get a light, I'll try to post together.
Or your
What?
first book.
Well, one of the things I like to do when I was working was I like to teach. I don't know, I must have picked it up from my dad, but I sort of enjoy trying to take concept and putting it into visual context.
Hmm.
They take whatever the concepts were and put it into visual concepts. So I used to love putting together PowerPoint presentations to support my lectures and things that I did. And so I enjoy doing that. So I look at this, well, I want to communicate this. Well, and I bored you to death probably when we had our conversation the other day, but we could sit here and, people clocking out or looking for an espresso to with this. But okay, now how do you find a way to engage people visually with what concepts you're trying to show them?
Yeah.
And so that's why I do those posts. Yeah, I get a little crazy and I play around with graphics. That feeds another part of me.
Sure.
That I do.
Well, and I think it is overwhelming, but I think once you just sit down and try to digest and understand the scale bar of what range of time we're talking, the little dots, what they mean, I think it's understandable. And my point for everyone is that you need to look. You've done a lot of work about you, and that
Yeah.
data is for you, and your data doesn't apply to anyone else.
No.
So please don't try to. Well, Michael had took this many days. Look at this heart rate. No, everyone is their own person, and like going back to heart rates, if the most important thing for someone that's new to this environment, finding a new fitness routine is learning their heart rate.
Mhm.
There's plenty of written out there. Talk to your doctor. You don't need to find your maximum heart rate by nearly dying.
Don't.
There are plenty of calculations, but that's for you, and it doesn't really go by an equation. I remember I rode with a guy years ago, and he was just lagging behind. I thought, "Well, come on, let's go." And he goes, "Well, I can't because I'm hitting my heart rate threshold." And I asked him, "Well, how did you calculate that?" And he 220 minus his age. I said, "Come on, we're in our 30s. You can go harder than that." And
Yeah.
he went back and did some math and some homework, and okay, I can. But everyone needs to figure that number for themselves.
Right. And you're right. It's not a competition. Hopefully any of the posts I've done for an apology, that it's not about ego. It's not about this. I can do this or I'm doing it better. It's just like, again, I'm on my own science experiment. We're all on our own experiment. Right. And so
Mhm,
now it is, well, okay, practice, play with it. I mean, that's what I do. I try to teach myself about myself. And
mhm.
I showed you a book when we were talking the other day, the scientific training for endurance athletes. And Dr. Philip Skiba wrote it. And in there in the book, one of the things that all the stuff he talked about, how to use power with training and whatnot, one of the things he said is the most important thing is power you can exert, how you feel about it during and afterwards. Two simple concepts. How
Yeah.
your perceived exertion. How did I feel when I exerted that power for that amount of time?
Mhm,
And now you're listening to how you feel. If you just did that very simple thing, you don't have to do any of this data crunching. You can just get on the rower. You sort of keep an eyeball on that power, keep a mindset. I put a post-it note up there and say, hey, this is what I can do for this long. And this is how good I feel. And if I feel
yeah.
better, go a little harder, a little longer. If I don't feel good, back off, you know,
Absolutely.
and then, like you said, heart rate, you keep that over on the side as a check, as another balance point that says, boy, I'm doing this, but yet my heart rate's just taking off. Maybe I need to back. There's another part of me I need to listen to and back off. Or
Absolutely.
you can go silly like me and then you just start looking at all this stuff and and yeah, I've gone on steroids a little weird. But I learned something about myself in the process. I've learned something about exercise physiology that I never knew. I guess in retirement, I'm just teaching myself a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with what I did for work, which is fine. And just learning something, learning about myself in the process. And it's also part of, it's a part of a great community. At least nobody's yelled at me yet. That's what I love about the Ergatta community. It's a very kind community. It's a very supportive community.
Well,
Uh,
some heads might have exploded along the way too, and people they can't even
yeah.
come up with a good response.
uh, Hopefully it wasn't fatal. But yeah, it's just listening to yourself. And then if you want more data, you want more indicators, yeah, you can dig underneath the covers a little deeper. Yeah, you can dig down a little deeper and dig to your content, whatever satisfies your needs. And again, I go back to what sticks at is about goals. If to me, it helps me prove a goal. And you find whatever it takes to prove your goal, to know that you hit the goal that you set for yourself. Well, my goal right now is to figure out some indicators, some data indicators that will lead me to know when to back off because I have the tendency to go over the edge and then
Mhm.
sit around after I take, ibuprofen and Advil or excuse me, ibuprofen, Advil, Tylenol, whatever, and pay for it the next day. And then my wife gets tired of hearing me moaning and grumbling. And
There's another indicator you're overtraining is your
that's
spouse.
right. Exactly. And so I'll just say she doesn't have to hear me whine and complain. Maybe I can get an indicator from an inanimate device, well, a semi-animate device called the computer, and it'll tell me, hey, red flag. Maybe you need to be thinking about, backing off. So I haven't quite got my head around how I'm going to do the next post, but I am going to do an update on where I'm at 42 days into my return and how my fitness has changed, what the markers are showing. And, there are all kinds of different markers. Some people may agree with them or not agree with them, as far as whether they're valid or not. But I'm basing it upon what's out there. Stuff that I'm using right now. I still look at row salt, but I'm really gotten into Intervals.ICU because the way it presents metrics are a little bit richer because it's part of that biking ecosystem. And those guys are crazy. I said, sorry. Yeah, you got, I,
No offense taken.
yeah, erg rowers have no goals to bike people. They're really into that. It reminds me of a movie I saw one time. I think it was For the Love of the Game, where Kevin Costner's character says something. Well, we track everything in baseball, talking about statistics, one loss, strikes versus walks versus number, all that. Well, bikers for data, I'm amazed how deep they go. They track everything. So what's nice out there, there's some tools that could be, nudged over and used for rowing. And I'm trying to see if I can use those tools and apply it. Intervals ICU is turning out to be an interesting platform.
Well, we'll look forward to your next post. And once again, like I said, I did some research before our call today. And I just want to share with you that this is kind of funny. Some of the things you said in your own post about yourself, starting with the preface. I know this is a little too analytical. So for all of you that are data driven, and this is really data nerdy, let's see more data nerd stuff. In retrospect, being a data nerd, yes, I'm a little over analytical. Being somewhat data nerdish, this is how you start all your posts. And my favorite one is being a data freak. I was curious if I could graphically quantify how crappy I was feeling. Your word.
Yes. Well, gotta have a sense of humor.
Absolutely.
Well, I know what I am. 68, I think, at this point. Can't run away from it. Yeah, I might as well have fun with it. So, yeah, it's fun. What I really love though is just, every once in a while I stay away from Facebook lately between travel and whatnot. But I really enjoy the posts and watching everybody else's experiences. There's some great people out there that are doing some great things.
Well, who knew that the community would be such a big part of the Ergatta purchase?
I
Um,
had no idea. Honest with you, I just saw it too. I almost bought a water rower. I don't know if you have the water rower. I didn't do the upgrade. I almost just bought the water rower, but the gamification part and the part about not having somebody lead me, down for workouts, all the other stuff really appealed to me. And then there was something, there, and we have this Facebook group. So while I was waiting for my rower to show up, I got on the Facebook group. I started looking at this. Wow, this is really interesting. I found that the community is extremely supportive. You never hear a critical word from anybody about what anybody's doing. It's all about trying to, support people with what they're trying to achieve. And we've got people that are working really hard to try to improve themselves. And, and so I think what helps in the community is because people are pretty honest and they share. People can see, hey, I've been there, or they could say, I might be there someday.
mhm.
So it's good to and listen and watch and support and see how people work through their challenges. And again, everybody's very nice to everyone. And that's what I
Well,
really,
I know that I'm 50, and I hope that I'm doing what you're doing at 68 and what Stick's doing at 75. I mean, it's
oh,
just I'm
oh,
amazed.
if I could even come close to what he's doing, 75 yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
Sean
and
and
Shar.
all those folks that are just getting it out. I, I wish I've gone to fish. I think, I talked briefly. You said I did some rowing. So this summer I hadn't been back on the water for, gosh, almost 50 years. Scary thought. And I rowed. It was a goal. I wanted to do it. And I was going to do it last year. Pandemic sort of, or, the previous year, the pandemic sort of got in the way. I was going to do it the year before, but again, my injury was causing me some issues. But be honest with you, God had gave me the confidence. At least I could go out there and not totally embarrass myself.
Mhm.
I thought I was fit enough. I had no delusions of grandeur that I knew I could row again. But at least I knew I was fit enough that I wouldn't go up there and just heave over the side and just chase after I heave. And it did. I mean, it gave me that confidence to do it. But boy, what it did tell me is that rowing on an ergometer and rowing in the real world with 7 other people that rely on you doing a good stroke every time
Mhm.
and working as a team, totally different animals, and taught me about my stroke and taught me some issues about improving my stroke. And I know people in the Ergatta community, don't like coaching, don't like the coaching that comes with these group classes type thing. But finding a way to coach, I think somebody on the group had must have done either like subscribed to an online where they could submit their tape and
Mhm.
somebody the critique of their rowing. Having that opportunity to do that and having that somebody be able to critique your stroke that you're doing it properly so you don't injure yourself is, I think, huge, because I learned something this summer about my stroke. I was opening up too quickly. They affectionately call it the erg stroke. The coaches. It is something you learn on the erg.
Mhm.
You don't feel the ramification of it other than the pain maybe in the lower back, but you don't get immediate feedback that you're doing that. On a boat, if you do it, the whole boat goes cattywampus and you can't hide from it. Everybody knows it was
Sure
you.
enough, they did it.
And the worst part about it, you know that it was you, and then you got to immediately correct it because they say strokes that a bad stroke only lasts 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and you have to completely forget about it and get back to. Otherwise, you just keep on making error after error after error, and then everybody
Mhm.
upset. So you have to have a completely short memory, and that taught me to think about focus on the erg. It's helped me focus on my strokes and not open. And I was doing that this morning before this thing. I got on there and I thought, okay, I'm going to crank out my first 40-minute workout since I got from my week off. And I was going about it and I realized, oh, I was the catch doing that before I'm ever all the way up the slide, pulling up
Mhm.
the shoulders. So my mode to correct that, I've taught myself is keep my hands low in the plane and kick and then pull in. But if rocking back early and those are the little things we all start teaching and tips we pick up. I pick up, I read Facebook posts and I watch what people have learned. And I just sort of file that away and I learn from everybody on the group. So yeah, I think it's a great thing that they've done that a lot of fitness apps don't, I know our fitness platforms don't have. So
They'll all learn a little something.
yeah.
All right. Well, great. I was looking forward to hearing the story about going to the boathouse and bringing our conversations full circle. So yeah, awesome segue.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I told you the other day, the boathouse, see, the worst part about think about going back, that doggone boat weighs a lot. Well, those pictures I posted coming down the boat, when you're walking down, I think I probably shrunk about an inch because you're coming down that thing and compressing, and these 68-year-old vertebra don't like, but you mentioned one thing I learned in that rowing community, there are people that have been rowing 40 years, 50 years in that club that I participated with. And there are people in their 70s and 80s that are still rowing competitively out there on the water. So, the things that, I think it's anything you find something that works for you, whether it be rowing, cycling, or whatever. You find the way to do it right so you don't injure yourself and then just keep on doing it and find a way to keep loving it and
Mhm.
stay connected with it. And so I'm glad to see that I'm hopeful Ergatta is able to maintain its business model and provide the platform for people to do what they're doing. Because it's fun to watch people on the post and new people that I've noticed that are coming on the post, sort of going through the experience of learning how well it can satisfy their needs for exercise and staying fit. Yeah, it's sort of fun to watch. So I'm looking forward to staying with it for quite a few years.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. We will look forward to your next post and all your future posts. Keep the fire
I'll
toes.
try. I'll try to not do the and wonk people out. So
Well, this now people will know. Hey, I heard you on At the Catch, so they're going to reply and ask detailed questions, and this is going to be your second job.
yeah, there could be worse jobs. Um, but again, I have to tell, don't know any. I just learn every day, and sometimes I learned that I didn't what I thought I knew wasn't correct. So it's like science. There's always something coming along, and there are PhDs that are way up here. Well, I'm just a layperson down here trying to find a way to take the stuff that they're doing and how can I apply it to just, a common person just trying to do a workout and pull some nuggets that will help me in my future goals, whatever those, whatever road I decide to go, whether it's recovery or go back to power or whatever route that I want to take. Maybe I can just do it smarter and and I guess you only have so many strokes of life, so I want to do them efficiently.
Absolutely. Well, I could say we're all in the same boat. Well, thank you very much, Michael. And I
Good,
guess
Brian.
it's, well, I've already rode, you've rode, so I guess we have to take the afternoon off.
Exactly.
All right. Take
All
care.
right. Take
Bye bye.